making sure that when someone thought of a fitness business, that immediately they thought of my business. And that was through a lot of diligence and hard work, of which I'm going to share with you today. So whenever you think of a company, a brand, immediately what comes to mind first is TOMA. So the specific definition of TOMA is TOMA awareness is owning the space that your product or service occupies between your prospect's ears. Again, when someone says, hey, let's go grab pizza, or I need a new pair of shoes, or I need a chiropractic adjustment, who comes to mind first? That way, of course, when they're ready to make that purchase, you come to mind first. So what do you need to know? We do know that when people plan on making a major purchase, which is typically about $500 or more, that it's not a decision that they make lightly. The typical long-term, or the typical time for a long-term or a big purchase is about 7 to 12 months. As you can see, the first 3 months is small. It's about 15% of people. But more than 35% of people make that decision within 7 to 12 months. So making a big decision is not something that people take lightly. They really take their time in making that decision. Why does it take so long? The first reason is people are skeptical. As many of you know, there are a lot of options out there. You know, when we were growing up, all of your options were down the street. Now our options are not only in our town, but they're also on the internet. So our options are vast. We can also do a lot more fact checking. You know, before if you go down the street to your favorite hardware store, you didn't do price checking. You knew who the owner was. You had a good sense of you know, you trusted him. You had a good sense of his business prowess. So you purchased from him. There wasn't this price checking like there is now. So people are skeptical, and they do their homework. People have less expendable income, so they're going to be very judicious with how they spend their money. Going back to what I alluded to earlier about the internet, there's so many choices, and at times there's a lot of confusion. When we look at banks, you know, how many banks are there? When we look at insurance companies, the field is vast. So what are you going to do to separate yourself from the vast competitors that are out there and really make yourself memorable, or TOMA? And then at the end of the day, people want to make informed decisions. They don't want to come back and regret the sale that they made. So one thing that I really wish people would do more of is talking to other people. I know we like to do that at the Chamber. We give recommendations based on personal experience, and honestly, I think you and I know those are probably the best types of referrals that you can get. So the idea is that it's essential to stay fresh in your potential customer's mind during this decision to buy process. So what does that mean? Well, before they buy, they gather their information. They're online. They might talk to family and friends. They might look up consumer reports. Now they can Google people to find out how they're rated. They want to review the alternatives. So even though your price might be the best, how do I know that your product or service is the best? So they might review their alternatives and see what those differences might be. They might select an alternative, kind of test it out for a little bit, get a trial period, see what it's like, and then ultimately they will evaluate the decision after the purchase. So the idea is preventing yourself from being that afterthought. You want to be top of mind when they are making that decision to purchase. So how do you position yourself to be that person that is top of mind? I call it lead nurturing. It's getting in at the beginning of the information process. It's so important because if you're on their mind, you will be in that kind of silent bidding process, if you will. So they might do their due diligence and their homework and gather their information, but if you've done your job of nurturing them through the process, ultimately they will come back to you. So let's look at what lead nurturing entails. It starts with what I call the 6 I's. You have to identify who your market is. You have to include them in a way where they feel part of your business, part of the process where they matter. Inspiring, and you have to inspire them with what is it that your business does differently than anybody else, or your service or your product, what makes it unique, what makes it stand out. Instruct them, educating them. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make online is with content, it gets old and stale. I think we can I'll remember a website that we've been to more than once, and every time we go back, the information is still the same. That's not a way to garner a potential client. The idea is to keep it fresh and updated and to educate them. Tell them something they didn't know or affirm something they think they might know so that they feel like that the information you're delivering to them is valuable. Inquire. Ask them questions. Find out what they want. We may think we know what our customer wants, but we really don't know until we ask them. And then the last is impress them. Do what you do best, and it might be customer service. It might be that your product is out of the park, the best ever, but you have to impress them, and you have to show them why you were top of mind, or why you are top of mind, and will eventually be their choice in their purchase. So let's talk about the identifying. This is the first of the 6 I's. The first question is, are you clear on who your prospects are, and how do you identify them? Well, begin with your customer base. Who is your customer? I think a mistake that some new business owners make is they present their product or their service or their business idea to friends and family. You can't do that because they're partial, they're biased. They're not going to give you the feedback that you want. So look at who your customers are, who the customers that you have attracted thus far, and ask them, the questions. What is it about my product or service that you like? Why are you, loyal to me? What is it that I have done that kept you loyal to me versus going somewhere else? Who needs your service or product? And that would depend on age and location, gender, occupation, lifestyle. Again, it goes back to taking a really close look at who your current clients or your members are. Certainly, I'm a big advocate of checking out competition, and it's not to copy them. People used to say to me all the time, aren't you afraid of competition? Competition, number one, makes you work harder, but competition gives me ideas and inspires me. And no matter, if I copy someone's idea, it will never be the same because there are no two business owners that are the same. So when you're looking at your competition, you might be inspired for some new ideas. You might learn what you don't want to do, especially visiting maybe those competitors that don't have a particularly good reputation. What is it that they're doing that you want to be sure to avoid? Or if they're wildly successful, what is it that they're doing that you could perhaps capitalize on? And then, of course, make sure that you list your features and benefits of your product or service to hone in on your market, as it really provides the base, because that's how you're going to acquire your prospects. So the second I is to stay connected and ask questions. Reaching out to your clients, you can never do that too often because that makes them feel like they matter too. When you're asking for their insight, their opinion, their ideas, what they like or don't like about your product or service, when you ask them those questions, it really adds to the value of your service and keeps you memorable and then ultimately keeps your clients loyal. If you're online doing social media, that's a great opportunity to engage them via questions. Offline presentations, I'm a big believer in presenting to local groups around town, whether it's service organizations, women's groups, men's groups. That's a perfect way to connect face-to-face with your audience because no matter how much we love the Internet and the advantage that it brings us, nothing at the end of the day is more valuable than that face-to-face time for building trust and loyalty. Getting them engaged really starts at the loyalty process. So don't forget, too, that the customers that you currently have, don't discard them. I think many of us likely know that it takes 5 to 6 times, some people say 7 times, as much money to acquire a new customer or a new client than it does to maintain a loyal customer or client. So what are you doing to keep your clients engaged and keep them interested? You have to be relevant. You have to be innovative. And maybe special offers for those longtime customers or clients that you've had. Those are things that make them feel valued. And at the end of the day, whether it's me running my chamber, I know my members want to feel valued. Your customers, your clients, they want to feel valued because that is what breeds that loyalty. And they tell their family and friends about how great you are because you include them in the process of growing their business, and their input is vastly important to you. So special offers and inside saving opportunities for your longtime member clients is a great way to keep them loyal and to be your best word of mouth referral source. You can also inspire via your unique selling proposition. Here's the deal, though. If you don't know what sets your business or your product or your service apart from anyone else, you're sunk. I know when I used to do consulting in my own business, and the first thing that I would ask a small business when I'd go in is, what sets you apart from everybody else? And 9 times out of 10, they go, I really care about my customer. Well, of course you care about your customer. Everybody that's in business cares about their customer, at least we'd like to think they do. So that's not necessarily your unique selling proposition. It's really your competitive advantage. So if someone were to ask me, okay, there's chambers all over, why should I join your chamber? Well, we have extensive programming that contributes to, your professional development, that can contribute to your business growth via learning some new marketing strategies, learning some new budget strategies or strategic planning strategies. We also have something very unique, and that's our member engagement coordinators. No other chambers have that. We have that, and that's our customer outreach or our member outreach. Those are just a couple of the things that make us unique and stand out perhaps from the crowd. Yes, we have a huge chamber, but at the end of the day, does that compute with people that that's what matters, especially if they like something small? Well, we have teams, right? Those are very important to those that are engaged with teams or maybe considering joining a team. But for those that like a big chamber, we have typically 3 to 4 times more members than a local chamber, which means that when you're reaching out, you have your prospect pool is significantly larger. So those are the kind of things that I believe makes us stand out. So ask yourself the question, what are 2 things that you have as a competitive advantage over your competitors? And then, can you easily communicate it? That's the other. You might know innately what makes you great just because I'm very knowledgeable about what I do, but how do you articulate that to your potential customer, member, client? What does that look like? So you have to be able to convey that unique selling proposition in your logo, on your website, in all of the marketing and communications that you do. You have to be able to communicate that. So up close and personal is your unique selling proposition. So immediately that's what brings you to the forefront of your potential customer versus being lost in the back because you're like everybody else. So inspire your potential customer with a unique selling proposition. And then education, I feel, is really important. And think about what a great edge that is. If you have perhaps met with somebody that is, we'll use a household appliance for an example, and they are ready to buy that refrigerator. So they said, we're going to shop around, we're going to come back. If you have made that connection and really found out what it is that they're looking for, how great would it be if, you reached out to them and said, hey, here's a couple interesting articles about the brand that you were looking at, and here's some other brands that you might want to consider. What does that say to that potential customer of yours? Wow, number 1, they listen to me. Number 2, they know what I'm looking for. And number 3, they're helping to educate me about not only what I'm looking for, but educating me about their service, which is pretty top-notch if they're taking the time to email me with this information. So right away, then you start standing out, and that is part of that lead nurturing. You're nurturing them towards that ultimate buy. Online, you can make sure your potential customers can find you easily. If you're not up on your SEO, hire somebody who is. And Bruce Jones is doing a presentation next week, and you will be given some fantastic information on online savvy. Offline, find good content to create for a newsletter if that's what you have. Offline or online, you can optimize your website, have it evaluated. Keep your customer coming back. As I mentioned earlier, stale content is the worst thing you can have on your website. Stagnant. People will not come back. If your goal is to keep people coming back, then offer them new and exciting and pertinent, relevant information so that they keep coming back to your site. That's really important. And then offline, again, I mentioned earlier, face-to-face is truly, at the end of this all, that's really what can seal the deal, is making that face-to-face connection, building that loyalty, building that trust. Because even though they're on my website and they can read how great I am, making that face-to-face connection, being able to sense your energy, you just can't compare that to online. So is inquiring. So online, great things to do are to keep your potential customers engaged by asking questions via social media, emails. Again, this is a great way to build loyalty. And again, what the whole topic is about today, top-of-mind awareness. Offline, why not host a seminar? Create a speaking circuit at local organizations. And those are really great opportunities to gain some insight, because then with that face-to-face, you can really ask the questions. And I'm just going to give you a tip about those of you that are comfortable speaking in front of groups, because not everybody is. But if you are, and you're looking to speak in front of a local organization, one of the things that I did that proved very successful for me is when I wrote an email or a letter, back then I was writing letters, I would say to the bottom, if you happen to have a last-minute cancellation for your speakers, please think of me. That was how I got my first speaking gig. I also was very mindful to do my research about who their audience was, and I provided the top 3 topics that I could come to their organization and speak on, versus, hey, I'm a speaker in town, I'd really like to, get in front of, your members and talk to them about whatever it might be, TOMA. Because they're not going to make that decision. They really don't know what you do. But if you narrow it down, you'll stand out that way. And then at the end by adding, hey, if someone cancels at the last minute, please consider, please think of me because I'm happy to stand in. And again, that's how I got my first speaking gig many years ago. Online Facebook page offers great opportunities to educate and engage in conversation. I'm a big believer in Facebook for Business. When I had my business before, I was very, very active on my Facebook and Twitter page. I felt like those were very valuable to me. It's how I built a great, loyal following. So if you're not doing it, we have many experts that can help you with that. As I mentioned earlier, Bruce's presentation is next Wednesday, and then Franklin's is the following Wednesday. So I hope you will all tune in for those. Offline, collect and share positive feedback from customers and clients versus testimonials. Testimonials are an interesting thing because it used to be like kind of a scary word, testimonials. It sounds so cheesy. I kept away from testimonials for a while because I felt like it was too self-serving. Of course, they love me. They're my loyal customers, but that's the point, is letting your customers know how you have created loyalty with your current and your current customer base or client base. So never be afraid to share testimonies. And what's so interesting is when I did consulting work and said, I noticed you have no testimonials on your website or on any of your materials, they say, I feel uncomfortable asking. I reminded them, they are loyal for a reason because they trust you, they believe in you, they admire what you do. If you ask them, they will be honored. I never had anybody say to me no. In fact, what I heard more often than not was, why don't you just go ahead and write it, send it my way, and I'll take a look and tweak it. People love to write testimonials for businesses that they feel very confident in and loyal to. So never be afraid to ask for testimonials. They can be your best source, again, of referral. So don't be afraid to ask about that. So next, impressed. What are your customers saying about you? This is interesting because we don't know always what our customers are saying about us. How do we know? Well, number one, what I just mentioned was the testimonials is a great way. But the reality is, if you get thumbs up, you will know because you're going to start getting those referrals. That was really one of the best sources of business for me, was word of mouth. My customers were saying great things. Also, online is a great opportunity for people to say, hey, I just came in and saw Joe at Joe's Appliance, and he was just great. You can even incentivize that. Hey, I'd love for you to go online, and I've got a gift certificate for you. You don't have to do that, but for your loyal clients, customers, it's kind of a nice thing to do. So once you've impressed your potential customer through all of those 6 I's that I mentioned earlier, you're probably pretty close to sealing the deal. A new customer loves to hear about satisfied customers, going back to the testimonials, and give your customers opportunities to be your ambassadors and reward them for it. So what I mentioned earlier about offering a special to your loyal customers, they don't mind touting your business if they've had a good experience. So never be afraid to ask for their help. They will be more than willing. You'll probably be surprised. So you've laid the TOMA foundation. You've identified who your market is, and you probably maybe already know, but now you're looking to do, what do I do next? So that begins with including them, engaging them in ways both on and offline, whether it's social media or seminars, special presentations, even webinars. Engage them that way. Inspire them with a really unique selling proposition. Know what you do better than anybody else, because I'll tell you what, you may say that there's, 100 banks, but I'll tell you what, they all do something different, and they all do something that speaks to their potential customer, and that's what they need to do is make sure that I'm not picking on banks. I'm simply using an example. But the idea is no matter how full your market is with your competitors, if you have a unique selling proposition and you convey it clearly in everything that you do, your marketing tools, when you speak to somebody and share your business, if you're clear on it, that is what will ultimately separate you and help you reach that TOMA. INSTRUCT, you can never give a potential customer too much information from an educational standpoint. I used the example earlier about the refrigerating and sending them information. I do that even with our members. If someone is asking me about a particular book or a class or a business, I will send them information because the more we can educate our member or our clients or customers, the more advantageous to us because, again, that breeds loyalty, trust, and a long-time customer. INQUIRE, meaning engage them to get feedback about your product or service. That's really important because that's when you start getting the information that you need to ask for testimonials and to be your ambassadors for your business. So impress them by sharing testimonials and being very, very clear on your customer service plan. I won't spend too much time on this. Just a couple minutes. I call it a CSP. That is one of the things that was the foundation of my speaking is customer service plans. You have got to know what your customer service plan is. Everything from how you answer the phone to how you handle an issue with a customer. What does that look like? Every business, no matter how small or large, should have a hard and fast customer service plan. Consistency is king. I'm a big believer in that. So when planning, think TOMA. Top of mind awareness should always be your goal with whatever you're doing, whether it's advertising, marketing, or any promotional strategies. So by increasing your brand exposure, you'll build your brand awareness, which is really who you are, the core of who you are. That's your brand. So we're going to talk a little bit, very briefly, about some cost-effective marketing ideas offline, depending on your business. I had magnets on my truck. It might seem archaic, but it worked very, very well for me, except when my kids were driving it and I didn't know it, but that's a whole other story. So I'm a big believer in having those magnets and being a driving billboard for your business. It's affordable and it can attract people. I know years ago I used to get a little brochure holder, and when I'd go to the store or shopping, I'd stick the brochure holder onto my van and I'd stick my brochures in there, and when I'd come back, invariably 3 or 4 of them were gone. So that works really well for me. If you have a brick and mortar, sidewalk signs are great. Banners are always good. Something I'm a big believer in is don't forget about the value of cross-promoting with other businesses. Especially in the chamber, I know that we do a lot of that. It's not common practice, which I find is really interesting. I love cross-promoting with other businesses and supporting other businesses and finding ways that we can work together. And in fact, I did a couple workshops and seminars and included 4 or 5 other businesses. And it was a wonderful way to bring in customers, loyal customers from 4 other businesses to take a look at mine. So I had captive audiences because in their mind, they trust the person who brought them there. And now they will view me as a more trusted resource. So that's a really great thing to do. I love speaking engagements, but as you can tell, I'm not shy when it comes to speaking in public, but that's a great way to get up close and personal with potential customers and clients. Networking, I think nobody does it better than the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce. Networking is really important. Sometimes people I want to say undermine the value of networking. I don't know if that's the proper word, but they really don't understand the value of networking. And I think sometimes it's because we do so much online. But getting back to what I said earlier more than once is that there's nothing like face-to-face to build loyalty and trust. And if I'm going to learn about somebody's business, I'd rather learn about it face-to-face to see their energy and enthusiasm and passion about their business. You can't get that online. So I'm a big proponent of networking. And, of course, get involved in your community. What a fantastic way not only to meet people, but to show people your commitment to getting outside of yourself and doing something bigger and greater than your business. So I'm a big believer and advocate in that. Some online marketing strategies, and again, I'm going to spend a very short time because I'm sure Bruce will cover this next week, and then Franklin will do some of this the following week. Develop a website that's to the point, easy to navigate, visually appealing. I'm sure that there are many of us that have been to websites that after about 30 seconds we cancel out because you can't navigate it. It's too frustrating. Create a social media presence. Again, I'm a big believer in that. But the key is that you have to be consistent, not to mention that you really have to provide worthwhile content. I'm always amazed. I currently, if you don't follow me now on Facebook, I'm at, I think, Nikki Anderson. It's just a business page. And I'm amazed when I post something that I might not think is that engaging, and suddenly I've got 40 or 50 responses to it. So, and then other times I think I have something really prolific and fascinating, and, you get 10 likes. So I really find that interesting, but it's a perfect opportunity then to reach out and say, what are you interested in hearing about? What can I post that you might find more engaging and informative? Because if you're going to take the time to come visit my page, I at least want to put up information there that you find valuable. So you must be consistent with it. Educate and entertain. I believe that educating and entertaining your online audience should be 80%. Selling and promoting should be 20%. People can smell a mile away someone who is just a shameless self-promoter. So you have to offer them something of value before you can actually start selling to them. And it's going to take a long time. I will tell you, I think, personally, my experience has been it takes a longer time to develop an online following, and I'm talking about a loyal following, not just somebody who likes you, but an online loyal following that it does face-to-face. And I have my reasons for that opinion. But there is a site, socialbaker.com. You can learn more about information gathering and how you can better really kind of seek out your market and find out where they are. So that might be helpful. Remember, contentment breeds mediocrity. You should always be finding ways to be creative and innovative, talking to other businesses, even similar to yours. When I mentioned earlier about, checking out your competition, I would meet with competition and find out what they're doing, what their challenges are, struggles are, and we talk about it. Because again, remember, there may be competition, but no one will do what you do as good or the same way. So I'm going to share a few ways of you to stay memorable and to create long-term top-of-mind awareness. So number one is deliver flawlessly. You've heard the saying over and over to, under-promise and over-deliver. There's no better way to gain a loyal following than to do that. So be very, very mindful. If you make a promise to a customer or a client that you follow through on that, that is absolutely crucial. And what I'm talking about here is ways that you can create with your current following them to create that testimonial that ultimately will garner those potential clients that are out trying to figure out who they're ultimately going to do business with. Surprise and delight. I love this because when you give them something they didn't expect, they're going to talk about it, and they're going to talk about it to their friends. They're going to talk about it to their coworkers and to their colleagues. So colleagues. So they're going to talk about it to other people, and that's what really gets the ball rolling. So if they happen to talk to somebody that is looking for that refrigerator salesman because they need a refrigerator, and says, "God, I just went to Joe's Appliance, and the guy was absolutely fantastic." Boom, right there, you've got a lead without intention, simply because you did your job over and above. Genuine engagement, satisfaction is key. And all of these things that I'm mentioning with you is what equates to ultimate customer satisfaction. Be genuine in your engagement with your customers. Even if they're disgruntled, it's absolutely vital to listen to what they have to say. I always say you will never learn if you're yapping. So, close your mouth, listen to what someone has to say, because you will always learn something. It might not necessarily be new, but it will be something that you needed to hear again. So engage your customer, engage them, and make them feel like they're a priority. Attitude, and this not only goes for you and how you run your business, but what about the people that work with you? What is your staff like? Is there a culture that is an attitude of gratitude, where when they speak to your customers or your potential customers, that they answer the phone, enthusiastically, and that you have a customer service policy that makes sure that every single person that either walks through your doors or calls on your phone is handled with kid gloves. So important, and it's the little things that can make a big difference. Something, a small, a quick phone call after they've come by to visit you, or a thank you card after they've called you to ask for some information even though they didn't buy. So those little things can have huge impact. What I said earlier is there's nothing better than under-promising and over-delivering. I think we can probably all think of times when that has happened, and we have told people about it. However, we have also had experiences where they over-promised and under-delivered, and we've probably shared that story more often. And the reality is that when people have a bad experience, unfortunately, they tend to tell more people than when they've had a good experience. So make it a priority to under-promise and over-deliver. And with that, I ask you to go create your TOMA and watch your business soar. With that, I would like to welcome questions from everybody. So I'm going to, there we are. So this just kind of illustrates how you can go through the process of asking a question. And also, please feel free to provide feedback for me. I'm hoping you could hear me clearly, that the PowerPoint presentation came across your screen okay, so we certainly want to hear from you. But now I'm open for questions and would love to hear from you. So if you send them through the chat, I will just read them and share my response. So it might take a couple minutes to get everybody squared away. And like I said, even if you don't have a question, we'd love to hear your feedback. This is the first of 3 webinars that we're doing. Next week is Bruce Jones, and he is with Design and Promote, and I know he will do a great presentation. And then I know Franklin, and forgive me, I don't want to go online to look, but I know he's got a great presentation about marketing. So very, very valuable. And really what our objective is with these webinars is to make sure that you guys can get information in a timely, efficient manner, so that if you don't have time to get away from your desk, and I'm speaking from experience, I know that it's hard to get away sometimes. So if this is one more value add that we can have for you, I'm excited, and that's why I'm anxious to hear back from you and to see what you guys think and how you experienced the webinar. And not only that, then whatever feedback we get this week, then we can provide that to our next 2 presenters. And they're the next 2 Wednesdays, so if you haven't registered yet and you would like to register, please feel free to do that. All right, so we're waiting for a couple questions here. And I will tell you, just to kind of explain the TOMA idea, I learned about TOMA probably 10 or 15 years ago, and I applied what I learned from a conference that I had been to, and then created the 6 I's, and it was really, really impactful. So, all right, so let's go to our first question. Oh, yay, so we came through, great, love that. Thank you. And what I think what we're going to do, and I'm not sure with all of these, is that we will put them up on our YouTube. So I did hear from someone that said she'd like to maybe hear it again. So if that's the case, then we want to make sure that we have it available if you want to share it with your coworkers, or just to preview it again because there might be something that you might have missed. Okay, so one of the questions is, when you underpromise, do you run the risk of underselling your product or making yourself less competitive? Let's not confuse underpromising with less quality. The idea is that I'm going to try and think of a good example here. Well, I'll use the chamber as an example. When I say to a new member, we're so thrilled you're joining us. We will have our member engagement coordinators reach out to you. They will give you some insight onto events. We'll also have our ambassadors. I don't necessarily give them a timeline, because if I say tomorrow, they will call you. I might say next week, because that gives me a little room for error. And that would be a perfect example. So I'm not minimizing what we can do in our potential or downplaying our product or our service, but it's just making sure that I'm not saying something that I don't always have control over, if that makes sense. All right, any other questions? All right, so I'll wait a couple more minutes. But I want to just take this opportunity truly to thank all of you. We had a great showing today. I think we almost sold out, which is fantastic for our first time out. And I just thank you all so much for being able to take time out of your very, very busy schedule to listen to me. Yeah, hopefully you garnered some tips that can help you as you move forward with your business. And know that I'm always available if you have any other questions beyond today. I can answer any questions that you may have. Let's say, okay, who would you say does the best job of this in the chamber? So who could we model after? And Kurt, this is from Kurt. Do you mean from a TOMA standpoint? Or do you mean from an under-promise and over-deliver? So I'm going to assume that you're talking about TOMA, and actually who comes to mind is Aurelio's Pizza. And if you guys don't know Celeste Wagner, she's absolutely fabulous. She's involved in the community. She delivers consistently. Here's the other thing, too, that I think is important to remember when I mentioned about the importance of community involvement, is that just because you're involved in the community doesn't seal the deal. You have to follow through. And I think Celeste is a beautiful example of getting involved in the community and following through. She's a tireless advocate for anything she's involved in. And now, granted, they have a number of restaurants, and it's a chain, but honestly, until I met Celeste, and she probably wouldn't like to hear this, I had never really heard of Aurelio's Pizza, and now it is completely top of mind for me. So I hope that that's a good example for you. And let's see if I can think of somebody else. I would think of Bruce, Design and Promote, but I'm going to let him talk about that next week. Any service businesses. Oh my gosh, you put me on the spot here. Let me think. I may have to think about that one, and it should come top of mind, right? It should be right there. I would say that there are some attorneys that I know that are very involved in the community. They're very involved in the chamber. They have a great brand because, again, not only are they involved in the community, but they follow through, which I think is important. So there's probably a lot more than are coming to mind now, which almost seems like it defeats the whole point of TOMA. But yeah, I think that's great. You know what? And maybe this will inspire me to do an article on TOMA, maybe a follow-up to the webinar, and perhaps give some specific businesses kind of and I know one. It's a retail business, but I would say Chris Hartner, Naperville Running does a beautiful job of TOMA. You walk in there, if you've ever been in there, amazing customer service. They are fantastic. If you get a pair of shoes from them and they're very, very persnickety on how they fit your shoes, if you leave and you're not happy and you bring them back, they will always take them back. So fantastic customer service, dedication to their customers, making sure that they're satisfied with their product, and just good people. It's a good organization. So I would say he's probably another one that comes to mind. And I'm sure that after I say thank you and we sign off, like 20 will start flowing through my brain. But that's a great question. So thank you, because there's nothing better than an example. Yeah. So I know we're getting done a little early today, but I think you could probably all use 15 more minutes to do something productive. And I hope that you felt this 45 minutes of your day has been productive. And again, I just want to extend my thanks to all of you. Feel free also to send us ideas on topics that you might want to hear more about. Because if we get good feedback from this and people are enjoying it, we'd like to continue it. But most importantly, we want to make sure that we're delivering the information that you guys want. So remember, that's one of the 6 I's: inquire, ask them. So thanks so much. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks for joining us for our very first webinar.